What's up, fellas? It's your boy Schema, back with another episode of the Dynasty Showtime test schedule, where you have to win games. This is Dynasty. I dropped some games last year I thought I would win. The Colts went 3-13, I dropped it, and you saw I fell one game short of the playoffs. Again, you have to win the games you're supposed to win, not take nobody lightly. And when you fall behind by 17 points, then you start playing. No, that can't happen. Um, okay, so we're gonna get this show on the road. Starting with the Bears. He's gonna beat the Buccaneers. He's gonna beat the Broncos. He'll beat the Cardinals. Cardinals still getting used to his team. Toss up against the Giants bye week. He'll beat the Pack. Toss up against the Panthers. Toss up against the Vikes. You gotta respect him now. He'll beat the Falcons. Toss up against the Chargers. He'll beat the Pack. This is a trap game. He should beat the Lions, but the Lions have beaten him before, so that's a trap game. Um, and depending on what happened in the first game, him and the Vikings will end up splitting. He won't beat the Saints. This is I get the Bears this one. It's come late season, he gonna close out strong. Toss up against Tone. Toss up against the Chiefs. All right, rolling over to the Bengals. He not going to Jacksonville winning. He could be up by 17 and still lose. Um, Colts. He not beating the Colts. I think the Colts gonna get him this year. Browns. He not beating the Browns. Toss up against the Steelers. Um, it's actually a toss up game. Big Homie might win this. It's a toss up against the Rams. 49ers. He not winning that. He not beating the Patriots. He not beating the Browns. Toss up against the Cardinals. He's still we don't know this guy yet and what he gonna bring to the table. The dynasty is totally different. Texans. He not beating the Texans. Toss up against the Titans. He not beating the Ravens. Toss up against the Steelers. He not beating Seattle. He not beating the Ravens. He not beating the Raiders. Bills. Toss up against the Redskins. He not beating the Dolphins. Not gonna beat the Giants. It's a toss up against the Cowboys. He not beating the Patriots. This is a trap game. He normally plays the second game a little tougher. It's a trap game. So for us the Bills, no, he not beating the Patriots, bro. Dolphins, he not beating the Dolphins. He not beating the Chargers. He'll beat the Colts. I think the Bills will come ready in this game. He'll beat the Steelers. This is actually a toss-up game. These guys play similar styles at certain parts of the season. Certain points of the season. Then they'll go back to reality. But I've seen these guys really zoom in and focus on key players within the depth chart. So they got similarity. He not beating the Jets. He gonna beat the Broncos. He not beating the Chiefs. He not beating the Eagles. This is a toss-up. Week 17, this is gonna be a toss-up game. Both of these guys got a chance to get to the playoffs. Look out for a good game. Broncos not beating the Chiefs. Not beating the Bears. Not beating the Chargers. Not beating the Patriots. Not beating the Raiders. Not beating the Jets. This second game gonna be a hell of a game. This gonna be a toss-up against the Raiders in the second game. Not beating the Chargers. Not beating the Chiefs. I get the Broncos a chance in this game. I really do. So we're gonna say a toss-up because the Vikings have trouble moving the ball. You know what I'm saying? Broncos, he come in and put up 30 points. I don't know if Hamilton can keep up, but we'll see. So we'll say a toss-up. The Colts, I really like the Colts in this game. He not beating the Colts. I just don't. It's just a style of play that I've seen. The Packers, He not beating the Pack. The Bills, it's a pretty decent game. It's a toss-up. He gonna beat Flair. It's a toss-up. He not beating the Dolphins. Browns, don't sleep on this game. We're gonna give this a toss-up. Toss-up. He gonna beat Flair. It's week 4. He not beating Jacksonville. He gonna beat the Steelers. This is actual toss-up game. Chiefs and the Browns, two explosive offenses when they play in their best, and then have a good sequential, play calling game or whatever. You know how sometimes you go into the game, you're like, dang, I should have called that play first. If they can call a good sequence, when it comes to picking out plays, I feel it could be a toss-up game. Another toss-up. We gonna crush homie. Pretty good game here. Toss-up. 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 He gonna beat the Steelers. He gonna beat the Titans. He gonna beat the Cardinals. He not gonna beat the Niners. Toss-up against the Ravens. The Buccaneers not beating the Bears. This is gonna be a good game. I'm gonna call this a toss-up. Dave done came a long way. He been winning some big games, but this time, hopefully, you win the games you're supposed to. This right here, this game gonna mean something too. Neither guy's really dominated the whole time. They win some games, but whoever throws the first punch could hold on to this. So we're gonna get us a toss-up. Packers and new quarterback in town. I'm going with the Bucks. He gonna beat the Pack. He gonna beat the Titans. You're not gonna beat the Falcons. I can't trust you no more, dog. You can't. You're not gonna beat the Falcons. Toss up between you and the Lions. You're not gonna beat the Panthers in this one here. Not this particular one here. You're not gonna beat the Saints. You'll get the Falcons in this one here. Y'all are split. I'm gonna give y'all a split. The Vikings. Whew, boy, you better come ready. Helmet top ready. Helmet top can get you, dog. I'm going with the Vikes. You're not gonna beat the Vikes. Not gonna beat the Saints. Toss up against the Colts. You're definitely not going to Jacksonville win a win. Rams. I think the Rams will be explosive enough, so I'm gonna say no. You won't beat the Rams. Panthers. We'll see what's going on. You're not gonna beat the Panthers in week 1, and you're not gonna beat the Panthers in week 17. I got them sweeping you. For some reason, I just feel you get close to this guy. If it comes down to it, you better win week 1. You better win that first game between y'all, because if his playoff hope is on the line, he gonna get you in week 17. He gonna get you, dog. You better win that first matchup. The Cardinals ain't beating the Ravens. You might well skip all these games. He not coming here beating the Eagles, not the Bears, not the Niners, not the Seahawks, not the Rams. Toss up against Flair. He not beating the Giants. Toss up against the Bengals. Even though I do think the Bengals have enough ammunition to beat them. But this depends. Seahawks. No. Not beating the Saints. Not beating the Rams. Not beating the Skins. Not beating the Browns. I don't even think he can beat the Cowboys. But we already know that everybody take their best shot at HBO. So we still no. And you're not going to beat the Niners. Chargers and the Jets. It's a good toss-up game. That's toned out, man. Always a toss-up game. Broncos, he'll beat them. Dolphins a toss. This your trap game. This your trap game. Every time you play the Lions, it's always a trap game. You think you're going to go in there and beat them bad, and it turns out to be a trap game. The Chiefs, toss up. Broncos, he gonna beat him. Bills, another trap game. I feel like Chargers gonna go just dominate this game and beat him, but it's a trap game still. Toss up, toss up, toss up, toss up, toss up, toss up. Very intriguing. It's like you can go back and forth on this game. I put my money on the Chargers just because he has a better offense. So I'm gonna say he'll beat the Vikings. He'll beat the Pack. Chiefs, he'll beat the Broncos. Toss up. He'll beat the Lions. Toss up against the Texans. Toss up against the Jets. Toss up against the Chargers. Toss up against the Browns. He'll beat the Vikings. He'll beat the Broncos. Toss up against the Raiders. He'll beat the Pack. Toss up against the Raiders. Toss up against the Chargers. He gonna beat the Bills. Just something about this game. Bills could show up, but it's gonna be a tough one. Toss up against the Dolphins. Toss up against the Bears. Colts. Toss up against the Browns. He'll he'll beat the Bengals. Toss up against the Titans in week 3. He's not gonna beat the Ravens. He's not gonna beat the Panthers. He gonna beat the Steelers. Another toss up against the Titans. He not beating Jacksonville. I'm gonna call this a toss up against the Bills. Not beating the Saints. He'll beat the Broncos. Very interesting game though. Very interesting game. Texans. Feel like the Texans in this game here, it's a toss up. Toss up. He not beating the Texans in this one here. He not beating Jacksonville. Wow. Nothing but a toss up in this one here. Him and the Falcons. Alright, rolling over to the Cowboys. The Lions. This a toss up. You know. Yeah. Cowboys and Seahawks. You're not beating the Seahawks. Excuse me. Also, toss up. Toss up. Toss up. You're not beating the Niners. You're not beating the Giants in this one. Not beating the Eagles. Not beating the Patriots. Not beating the Giants. Not beating the Eagles. Not beating the Dolphins. Rams, that's a toss-up. Jets, that's going to be a toss-up. Jets by style of play. He going to beat the Cardinals. This particular one here, I think he'll beat the Skins. The Dolphins. Dolphins and Eagles toss-up. Week 2 trap game. If he's sleeping, the Bills going to get him. Toss up against Tone. Toss up against Chargers. For us, the Giants. That's a big toss up game. Toss up. Toss up. He'll beat the Bills in this one. He'll be warmed up by then. Jets. Toss up. Toss up. Another trap game. He going there sleeping. The Skins can get him. He gonna beat the Cowboys. Toss up. Toss up. Chiefs are toss up. He'll beat the Broncos. Eagles, toss up. He'll beat the Cardinals. Toss up. He'll beat the Vikes. He'll beat the Skins. Toss up against Seattle. He'll beat Cowboys. He'll beat the Redskins. He'll beat the Rams. He'll beat the Jets. He'll beat the Cowboys. He'll beat the whoa, whoa. We'll say a toss up in this one. Toss up in the 49er game. Then Matty Ice will see, okay, I win this to get to the playoffs. Then Matty Ice will be like, he gonna beat him. So the first game between Eagles and Giants will be a toss up. Second one, Eagles all day. He'll beat the Bills. He'll beat the Patriots. Falcons and the Titans. He'll beat the Titans. Saints. He's not beating the Saints. He's not beating the Texans. Toss up against the Panthers. Not beating the Saints. Toss up against the Buccaneers. Actually, in this game here, no. He gonna beat the Bucks. Redskins. Whew. That's gonna be a pretty good one. Toss up. He's not getting no win in Chicago. Toss up against the Vikings. This game would be the toss up. The first game, the Falcons will win that one against the Bucks. This would be your toss up. He definitely not coming out to win with in Jacksonville. Lions a toss up game. Seattle toss up. Panthers toss up. It's a toss up game. And another toss up against the Colts. So yeah, a toss up against the Pack as well. 49ers will beat the Rams. He'll beat the Vikings. He'll beat the Steelers. He'll beat the Cardinals. Man, you got a soft schedule starting to open it up. Seattle will be a toss-up. He'll beat Cowboys. He'll beat the Bengals. He'll toss up against Seahawks. Toss up against the Ravens. He'll beat the Redskins. Toss up against the Giants. Toss up against the Panthers. Toss up against the Eagles. This particular game will be a toss-up if King Vitamin can still be playoff bound. So we'll see. You know, he still got Gurley, far as I know. We'll see. The Browns would definitely be. This I got to see this one, because the Browns can hit you, man, with all kinds of passing plays. It depends on what Brown team shows up. So right now, we're giving this a toss-up. The Cardinals, he'll beat the Cardinals. Giants came on strong, made the playoffs last year. So it's a toss-up against Seattle. He'll beat the Redskins. Could be a trap game, but I could see the Giants winning this. But this is a trap game. He's not a toss-up game. Toss-up. Giants and the Rams. Whew. Toss-up. Giants and Cowboys. Again. First game. Be a toss-up. He'll beat the Cardinals. Him and the Redskins will be a toss-up at this point. And I just think he's going to lose this one to the Cowboys. Now we're going to go with toss-up on this one here. This will be a toss-up. A toss-up. Then he'll beat. Then Eagles will beat him. Eagles will beat him. One of these games will be a toss-up. Then the Eagles will come back and beat him. Jets. You know. I feel like, man. It's going to be a toss-up. He's not beating the Saints. As you know, these are games that you just got to win. You know, you can't, if I say, you know, you got to win it, you just got to win it. Like the Jaguars, he got, you know, he going to beat the Bengals. He going to beat Titans. Toss up against the Saints. Pretty good. I like Jacksonville, but at this point right here, if he's not hot, I feel like it could be a toss up. Week 5, toss up. Toss up against the Ravens. Dolphins, toss up. He'll beat the Colts. He'll beat the Steelers. Toss up against the Chargers. He'll beat the Titans. He'll beat the Panthers. He'll beat the Buccaneers. He'll beat the Colts again. In this second game, definitely that's a toss up. Can't wait to see it. Jets, Chargers, toss up. Browns, toss up. Patriots, toss up. Chiefs, a toss up. Broncos, gotta win just to get to the playoffs. These are the games you can't lose. Redskins, it's gonna be a good one. We'll get out a toss up. Toss up. Toss up against the Raiders. Toss up against the Dolphins. He's not gonna beat the Eagles. Toss up against the Patriots. Trap game for him against the Bills. Toss up against the Dolphins. Toss up against the Cowboys. Toss up against the Giants. And if the playoff hopes is on the line, he'll beat the Bills. Lions. Toss up against the Cowboys. Toss up against the Rams. He gonna lose to the Chiefs. He'll lose to the Vikings in this one. It's a toss-up caliber game, but he'll lose. He'll lose to the Chargers. Toss up against the Raiders. Toss up against the Buccaneers. Saints. Not beating the Saints. New quarterback in town, bro. We'll say that new quarterback in town. He'll beat the Pack. Toss up against the Panthers. He'll beat the Bears. No, the Bears will beat him. Toss up against the Falcons. In this game here, Packers should be warmed up, and it'll become a toss up. Green Bay. Not Green Bay, but the Bears and the Lions. I'm gonna call this a toss up. I think the Bears will be playoff bound already. And we'll just see a toss up right here. Because the Lions going to be fighting to get in. He'll beat the Broncos. And the Vikings. It'll be a toss up game at this point. Considering both guys hopefully be in playoff position. Packers. They're not beating the Saints. Not beating the Panthers. I like the Vikings in this one. Just something about Green Bay. I'm going with the Buccaneers in this one. Just because your quarterback situation. Bears, not beating the Bears with a new quarterback. We seen what the Dolphins did, but I don't see it. Vikings, no. Not beating the Raiders. Not beating the Seahawks. Again, this is your toss-up game. Nah, I still like the Lions. The Lions will win this. Not beating the Bears, not beating the Chiefs. Toss up between you and the Broncos. This is the game right here that becomes a toss up. The Lions and the Pack. A toss up game here too against the Redskins. You're not beating the Falcons. Not beating the Chargers. Panthers. Vikings toss up. I like the Panthers in this one. I like this as a toss up. Toss up. Pretty interesting game. We'll go toss up on this one. Not beating the Saints. My mind right now tells me it's going to be a toss up game, Bears and Panthers. Not beating the Saints. This game right here, you'll beat the Buccaneers. Lions a toss up. Not beating the Texans. 49ers, not beating the Niners. This game could actually be better than you think. We'll call this a toss up. C-Rock got some skills. But you're not beating Jacksonville. I just don't see it. Um, we'll call it another toss up. He'll beat the Titans. He'll beat the Buccaneers in this one. Patriots. Starting off with toss up games. Toss up against the Raiders. Toss up against the Chiefs. Jets. I'll beat the Broncos. I'll beat the Bills. Toss up against the Dolphins. I'll beat the Bills. I'll beat the Bengals. I'll beat the Cowboys. Toss up against the Dolphins. Toss up against the Jets. Toss up against the Chargers. Giants. This a toss up. I don't think we've seen each other's best hand yet. I'll beat the Titans. This is my trap game. Can't go in there sleeping on the Redskins. I'll lose to the Eagles. Raiders and Patriots toss up. Chargers toss up. Dolphins toss up. This is gonna be pretty good game. But I'm just gonna say this is like one of those games you can't lose it. You can't lose the game you want to go to the playoffs again. So I say Raiders will win this. Raiders will beat Broncos. This is a type of game right here too as well. Both guys fighting for their lives. Toss up type game. He'll beat the Broncos. Packers and Raiders. Pretty good solid game. Toss up. Toss up. Chiefs. I really don't think the Packers gonna beat Tone though. But we just talking about Tone went down a little bit last year, but you know he can rise whenever he wants to. Toss up against the Chiefs. We gonna call this a toss up too, cause y'all play similar styles. The Raiders and Bills do. Toss up against the Chiefs. Toss up against the Vikings. Toss up against the Chargers. Toss up against the Bears. He'll beat the Bengals. The Rams will lose to the Niners. Lions, toss up. Redskins, toss up. He'll lose to Seattle. He'll beat the Bengals. Toss up against the Giants. He'll beat the Cardinals. Toss up against the Ravens. He'll lose to the Eagles. Toss up game between him and the Browns. Steelers. He'll beat the Steelers. He'll beat the Cardinals. He better beat the Cowboys. He'll lose to the Niners. This point of the season, you got to call this a toss-up. And he'll lose to Seattle. The Ravens will beat the Cardinals, Steelers. Toss-up against Seattle. Ravens will be too much for the Colts. He'll beat the Steelers. Toss-up against the Jags. Toss-up against the Browns. Toss-up against the Rams. Toss-up against the 49ers. Toss-up, no. He'll beat the Titans. Toss-up against the Chargers. He'll beat the Bengals. Toss-up against the Texans. Toss-up against the Dolphins. He'll beat the Bengals. And boy, if playoff implication is on this Browns game, it's a toss-up atmosphere, but I see Baltimore all over it. Redskins, it's a toss-up against the Bills. My goodness gracious. This game is always hard to call in the NFC East. Always hard to call. But he'll lose to the Giants. It's a toss-up against the Redskins. Yeah, I meant to say the Redskins and Rams are a toss-up. This is actually a toss-up too. You're not gonna go in there. You're not gonna go in there and just walk over the Skins, and the Skins ain't walk on the Cowboys. So it's definitely a toss-up. He'll lose to the Eagles. This a trap. This a toss. This a toss-up game. It's a game that you guys don't want to miss. Two similar styles. You don't want to miss this game. The Falcons, toss up, not beating the Eagles. At this point, Giants will be hot. He won't beat the Giants in this one. Not beating the Niners. Skins won't beat the Dolphins, won't beat the Seahawks. He'll beat the Cardinals. Toss up against the Pack. Not beating the Patriots. Toss up against the Cowboys. Saints will beat the Pack. He'll beat the Falcons. Toss up against the Jags. He'll beat the Falcons. He'll beat the Panthers. He'll beat the Titans. This will be a trap game. This one he should win, but it's just a trap. Lions, he gonna beat the Lions. He gonna beat the Buccaneers. He gonna beat the Colts. He gonna beat the Cardinals. He gonna beat the Buccaneers. It'll be a pretty solid game. We'll call it a toss-up. He'll beat the Vikings. He'll beat the Texans. He'll beat the Giants. Seahawks, Giants, toss-up. Seahawks will win this. But you better come with it. Toss-up against the Ravens. Toss-up against the Rams. Toss up against the Niners. He'll beat the Cardinals. Toss up against the Eagles. Toss up against the Niners. He'll beat the Pack. He'll beat the Cardinals. Toss up against the Browns. He'll beat the Redskins. But this is your trap game. This is a trap game. You need to show up and win this game. You plan on getting to the playoffs. He'll beat the Falcons. He'll beat the Bengals. He'll beat the Steelers. And he'll beat the Rams in this one. I think him and the Rams, for some reason, I think they're going to split. Steelers, lose to the Texans, lose to the Ravens, lose to the 49ers, toss up against the Bengals, lose to the Ravens, lose to the Browns, lose to the Colts. We'll call it a toss up for now, but I think Cardinals got a great chance. He'll lose to the Steelers. Actually, take that back. He'll lose to the Jaguars. Bills. Not a bad game to watch. But he'll lose to the Bills. Bills defense getting stronger and stronger. He'll lose to the Rams. He'll lose to the Browns. Toss-up game against the Bengals. Broncos. Toss-up. He'll lose to the Seahawks. Actually, this game could be a toss-up too. We'll go toss-up. Texans beat the Steelers. He'll beat the Bucks. Texans gonna be too powerful. For some reason, I think Nuke gonna show up. Texans gonna be a little too much. Toss up. Toss up against the Jags as well. Trap game. Don't sleep on darkness. Toss up. He'll beat the Titans in this one here. So no matter which darkness shows up in this game, he'll beat the Titans. Toss up against the Browns, he'll beat the Bengals. Toss up against the Panthers, he'll beat the Colts in this one. Toss up against the Ravens. It's a toss up at this point against the Colts. He's not beating the Saints. And it's a toss up against the Jaguars. Titans and the Falcons. I see him losing to the Falcons. See him losing to the Jaguars. Toss up against the Colts. This is a pretty interesting game. Titans and Raiders. Pretty interesting game. Titans and the Raiders, toss up. He's not beating the Buccaneers. Not that early. Not beating the Texans. Not beating the Saints. Toss up between you and the Colts. Not beating the Texans at this point. Not that one. Not the second game. Not beating the Ravens. This is a trap game for you. I got you rated higher than the big homie, but it's a trap game. Don't sleep. They'll put up 14 points on you quick, and then shut you down. You'll be at halftime 14-0. Jaguars, you're not winning that. You're not beating the Browns. You're not beating the Patriots. You're not beating the Panthers. You'll beat the Steelers. Vikings, pretty good game here. Toss up. You're not beating the Niners. Toss up against the Pack. I do have the Vikings winning this, but just how y'all teams are looking and how y'all play, you know, fresh quarterback coming in against your defense, then Vikings having trouble moving the ball, nothing but a toss up. Toss up against the Lions, not beating the Eagles. Think the Pack can come back. You're not beating the Packers in game 2. Toss up between you and the Bears at this point, you're not beating the Chiefs. You should beat the Falcons, but it's a toss-up. You'll beat the Broncos. Toss-up between you and the Bucks. It's going to be a funny game. You're not... Let me see here. In the second game, I think the first game between you and the Bears is going to be a toss-up. Going to be, you're going to beat the Bears. You're not going to beat the Bears in the first game. Then this game going to become a toss-up between you and the Bears. You and the Raiders, toss up. Not beating the Saints. You're not beating the Chargers. And this is a toss-up game between you and the Lions. As we stated before, you got to win the games. 500% or 50% of your toss-ups, you got to win them. And you must win all your games you're supposed to win in the Dynasty to make the playoffs. You have to. I dropped one game last year, 2 games. I was 10-6. At the time, I was supposed to beat the Vikings. He beat me. At the time, I was supposed to beat the Colts. He beat me in overtime. Those are the type of games you can't let slip. I give him a top respect. He made the playoffs. The Colts went 3-13, man. I was down 17 quick and made it an overtime game and couldn't hold. From that point, we was a 1-4. We finished out the season 9-2. So Joe Gills turned this, system around. We started scoring. Started getting some, pass deflects. And don't forget, fellas, we got a show coming up called, Best Pass Defense of the Dynasty. That's gonna be more graphical. It's gonna be a nice show. You know what I'm saying? Wait till you see who's number 1. But it won't be no surprise. All right, fellas. Good luck. Good luck. Pay close attention to your schedule. Make sure you concentrate. Like experts said, look 2 or 3 steps ahead. But always remember, take one game at a time. One game at a time. You see your schedule, you're like, oh, I got to play this guy. Make a trade. That might work out. You know what I'm saying? Use a couple of guys as practice games. But no. You don't want to do that. Take it one game at a time. And when that game is over, boom, jump to the next game. You know what I'm saying? So, we'll see. Peace, fellas.